Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. The 11th day of December 1950 gives us a particularly interesting strip from the Peanuts, which takes us inside an everyday scene, simple but rich in detail and meaning. Charles Schulz, with his extraordinary ability to recount the small situations of life, once again manages to turn a seemingly mundane moment into something memorable. The strip revolves around a little girl, a non-recurring character, intent on making a purchase in front of a counter while Snoopy watches her intently. With just a few pictures, Schulz builds a scene that plays on indecision, curiosity, and childlike spontaneity, leading us to an ending that overturns expectations with its subtle humor. The context of the strip authentically reflects the era in which it was published. In the 1950s, small neighborhood stores were the heart of the community and represented a familiar place for children to indulge in a few cents worth of treats or a small treat. Money to them was something precious and to be carefully managed, and every purchase became a significant event. Schulz captures this aspect very naturally, giving us back a fragment of life that, while belonging to another era, is still incredibly recognizable today. Another element that makes the strip fascinating is the presence of Snoopy. Although his role is silent, his expressiveness and observant attitude add further depth to the scene. At this early stage of his evolution, Snoopy is still a dog with simple and direct reactions, lacking the elaborate fantasies that will characterize him in the future. Yet already here his ability to interact with events without the need for words emerges, using body language and expressions to communicate with the reader. Schulz also makes masterful use of joke construction. The little girl, indecisive until the last moment, makes an unexpected choice that disorients the reader, reversing the logic of the story with an almost poetic lightness. This kind of humor, based on everyday situations and the unpredictability of the characters, is one of the hallmarks of the Peanuts and one of the reasons for their enduring success. The simplicity of the stroke and the absence of superfluous details allow the focus to be on the expressions and dynamics between the characters, making each vignette essential and effective. This strip, while less well-known than some of the more iconic ones, is a perfect demonstration of Schulz's mastery of telling life with irony, gentleness, and a depth hidden behind its apparent simplicity. In the first vignette, the little girl is standing in front of a counter, while Snoopy is sitting next to her, looking at her with a curious expression. The little girl is pointing at something and, with determination, expresses that she wants a penny. This scene, while simple, is already rich in meaning, introducing an element that will recur in the daily adventures of Snoopy and his friends. The setting, a small candy store, evokes a familiar atmosphere for readers of the time, as candy and bulk goods stores were very common, places where children could choose and purchase the exact amount of sweets or items they wanted. Schulz, with his mastery, does not include the vendor in the vignette, but instead focuses on the interaction between the little girl and Snoopy, creating a visual contrast that reinforces the message of the scene. One interesting element is the expression on Snoopy's face, which seems puzzled and confused by the situation. His reaction is accentuated by a large question mark above his head, a visual device that Schulz often uses to highlight the difference between the world of humans and the way Snoopy perceives reality. This small detail is a clear example of Schulz's genius for adding layers of meaning and humor even in seemingly mundane moments. In the second vignette, we see the little girl in a similar position, but this time with an expression of reflection, as if she is considering whether to make her choice. Snoopy, meanwhile, continues to watch her with interest, also wanting the sweets, his curious face seeming to question why the little girl is putting so much focus on the decision. This small gesture of indecision adds another layer of realism to the scene, showing us how even in the most mundane situations, children can ponder any choice, even the simplest. His uncertainty is a clear reminder of the natural spontaneity that characterizes childhood, a theme Schulz would explore several times throughout his strips. The absence of dialogue between the characters, with the exception of the little girl's words, allows Schulz to focus on the characters' expressions and attitudes, letting gestures and looks say more than any words. Snoopy's reaction to being puzzled is even more marked by his posture, His body is tense and his head slightly tilted, as if he is trying to grasp the logic behind the little girl's decision. This kind of silent interaction between the characters, though without real conflict, builds a subtle tension that will culminate in the strip's unexpected ending. In the third vignette, the child stands at a crossroads, ready to order another penny of something, but suddenly stops and decides to wait. This moment of suspension is charged with narrative tension, as if she is carefully weighing each choice, aware perhaps of her limited resources. His decision to do nothing creates an interesting contrast, adding a kind of uncertainty that leads the reader to wait for his next move. Snoopy, meanwhile, observes everything with a questioning expression, a pose that underscores his role as a confused but attentive spectator. He does not fully understand the situation, but he cannot help but observe with curiosity. In this way, Schulz demonstrates his mastery in capturing a trait typical of children, who often have to make difficult decisions with scarce resources. Their indecision becomes an integral part of their behavior, something Schulz is able to translate in an incredibly realistic way. The child, while not playing a large role, immediately becomes a character with whom readers can identify, thanks to this small and verisimilar uncertainty. In the fourth vignette, the twist comes. The little girl, after reflection, decides to take a comic book instead of continuing to buy small amounts of sweets or other products. Snoopy, surprised, reacts with an expression of astonishment and annoyance, emphasized by the exclamation mark above his head. This ending is particularly interesting because it shows a sudden change in the little girl's behavior, who, all of a sudden, realizes that perhaps she prefers something more lasting than small bulk things. Comic books, at the time, were a popular form of entertainment among children, and being able to buy them represented a small luxury that could provide hours of entertainment. Schulz, who loved the world of comics deeply, inserts an indirect reference to his own profession here, almost as a small tribute to the power of illustrated stories. In this way, the strip not only entertains but also offers a reflection on the value of entertainment that lingers over time, far more than a sweet that vanishes in a few minutes. This nod to comic book culture is a sign of the close connection between Schulz and the world he had chosen to represent. The idea of revolving the entire strip around a simple purchase is a perfect example of how Schulz could make the ordinary extraordinary. Every detail is designed to communicate something: the little girl's indecision, the ingenuity and simplicity of childhood, Snoopy's silent observation, which adds an extra layer of humor and tenderness to the scene. The fact that the little girl eventually chooses a comic strip instead of sweets can also be seen as a subtle message about the importance of reading, a theme that will return often in the Peanuts, especially with Linus and his love of philosophy. This December 11th, 1950 strip is a little gem of visual storytelling, which in just a few vignettes manages to condense an everyday scene in a brilliant and universal way. Schulz continues to build the world of the Peanuts with ever-new situations and incredible attention to detail, once again demonstrating his ability to turn the everyday into something memorable. His choice to use humor to tell stories of simple but meaningful life is one of his defining characteristics, giving each strip surprising depth while remaining accessible to all.
If you enjoyed yourselves, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next friends.